Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Brooklyn. Where have you gone? This episode is entitled Buses and Trains and How Did We Use Them to Get Where We Needed to Go? So, in my neighborhood, I grew up in Brighton Beach. I had tons of public transportation available to me. In buses, we had the B36, the B1, the B68, the B3, the B4, the B5, which was the King's Highway bus, which was replaced with the B82. On Avenue J, the B9 ran, and all trains, if they were letter trains, stopped at Coney Island. So we had the QB, the D, the F, the N, the B. And if you were in Bay Ridge, then you had the RR train. So as kids, if we wanted to get somewhere, and we went places like Kings Plaza, Kings Highway, 86th Street, Bay Ridge, Madison Square Garden, as we got a little older for sporting events and things. The city, we'd go to 34th Street, 42nd Street, Central Park. And I know in my neighborhood, a lot of us kids loved to go to baseball games, so we'd take public transportation to Shea Stadium. So one of the first stories I remember about me taking public transportation alone happened with my younger brother. And we happened to go to Kings Plaza, and we got there and back. Nobody even knew we were gone because I guess they thought we were at the park all day, which that happened all the time, especially in the summer. So one morning I was looking at the newspaper and I saw that one of my favorite Mets, John Milner, was appearing in Alexander's in Kings Plaza. Who remembers Alexander's? What a store. So I said to my brother, we have to go and get his autograph. And my brother says, how are we going to get there? I said, it's simple. We're going to take the bus. And we were young. We were like 12 and 9. So I said to my brother, we're going to take the bus. And he says, well, how are we going to pay for that? And of course, being the resourceful kid I was, I said, we're going to dig through the couch cushions. And sure enough, we found enough change to take the bus back then. So I grabbed a pad and a pen and off we went. We got in Brighton, on Neptune Avenue, we caught the B36, took it till we could transfer to the B3, which took us to right to the corner where Kings Plaza was. And we were there. And we felt like we were the most important kids in the world because we were doing this on our own. It was a lot of fun. It was an adventure back then. So we get on the line and we're waiting and we get up there. And John Milner gives us his autograph. And I said, excuse me, sir, could you give us a second? There's two of us. And he laughed and he signed it a second time. And then we left and off we went home. Did the trip in reverse, got on the B3, took it to the B36, went home, walked in the door, and all was good with the world because no one even knew we were gone, like I said. It wasn't until later on when my oldest brother found the autographs and said to me, how'd you get these? Told him the story, but he didn't give us up. He laughed and he said, good for you. So there'll be a few more stories a little later, but let me give you a little bit of history on what buses cost way back when. So we'll start with the train. There, in 1904, you to get on a train, they gave you a paper ticket, which cost 5 cents. You would then take it to a person who was standing in front of the doorway to get on a train, and that was the chopper. The person, literally, their job was to chop your ticket, give you back half, and then you got on the train. Then in the 1920s, New York City introduced coin-operated turnstiles. And the fare was a nickel. You dropped in your nickel, went through the turnstile, and you got on a train. Now, that mirrored the fare for the buses as well. And in 1948, the fare went to a dime. In 1953, it was raised to the huge amount of 15 cents. Now, this was an issue because you dropped your nickel in the turnstile to get on the train. 1 coin became 2. So they didn't want it to get that complicated, and this led to the inventing of the token. You know, the token with the little Y cut out on it. And the fare from 1953, which became 15 cents, that lasted all the way up until 1966 when it became 20 cents. And that's the first fare I remember was 20 cents. But in 1970, it went to 30 cents. We're talking big money here, folks. Now, 2 years later, they raised it a whole nickel. In 1972, it went to 35 cents. It wasn't until 1980 we got to 50 cents, a half a dollar. Wow, 50 cents. Actually, I'm sorry, that was 1975. It went to 50 cents. In 1980, it became 60 cents. And then a year later, in 1981, they raised it another quarter. It was 75 cents. That 75-cent fare lasted until 1984. It became 90 cents. Today, we are paying a grand total of $2.90 per trip for mass transit rides, buses, and trains, and that is rising rapidly. So now, one of the things that you could also do way back when was if you got on a bus and you needed to take another bus, they gave you a transfer. And that transfer was good for about 2 hours, and it crossed over to the trains as well. Now, I happen to have a book of transfers here. This book of transfers was from the B1, and it was from July 22nd, 1997. This is courtesy of my friend Al, who does have a website where he sells subway and train memorabilia. His website is www.subwayal.com. He's on eBay with an eBay store, and that's Subway Al. Al, thanks for your help with these. And please, folks, if you want to get any memorabilia for your trains and your buses, see my friend Al and toss him some business. So now, that was, we were up until I got to junior high. And in junior high, I did not go to school around the corner. I went to a junior high where I had to, most of the time, take a bus. So we got bus passes, and they were free. And they were good until 5 p.m. So I was a big shot then. If I needed to go to a friend's house that didn't live near me, I got out of school, went to his house, stood an hour, and took the bus home. I was a big shot. And back then, like I said, our parents didn't have time to chauffeur us around, and we knew the buses and train systems backwards and forward. We knew where every stop was, we knew where every train and bus took you, and we used them. The system was way safer back then as well, and parents let us travel at a younger age. And as I said, I started traveling on the buses and trains at 11, 12 years old. My wife she loves to tell the story how she'd go meet her mother in the city when she got out of work at the ripe old age of 8 years old. That's right, folks. My wife would get on the train by her house, and her mother told her, get on this car, stand by this door, and when you get off, I'll be waiting for you. And that's what happened. And like I said, the system was safer. And the adults on the train, if they saw a kid alone, they kept an eye on you and didn't allow anyone to mess with you. And, we had a good time running around on our own. But by the time my son was born, he really didn't have to travel until he hit high school, because he went to a high school that was a bus and a train right away. And what we did with him the first time is we showed him the route, we drove it with him, we showed him where to get the bus, we showed him where to get the train, and then we went back and started over. He got on the bus, and we followed with the car. I said to him, if you're scared or you have a problem, just get off, we'll pick you up, and we'll figure it out. But he did it, and he learned to travel at that age too. But by that time, I actually had a fight with a friend who said that he was too young to travel. But this was Brooklyn. They were no longer living in Brooklyn. And I knew that I wasn't always going to be able to take him someplace, or my wife wasn't always going to be able to take him someplace, and he had to be more self-reliant. And that's the thing. We were taught to be self-reliant. We were taught to be able to overcome these situations, get ourselves where we needed to go, get ourselves home, and we were not worried about, because they taught us to do those things. And that is pretty much my story of the buses and the trains and the way we rode them. And I know we all have different memories of how we did and stories of what we did. So if you like this content, please subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, And I have this book of transfers available. If anyone wants one, please leave a comment below with a brief story of what you used the trains and the buses before. Send me a message and we'll figure out how to get you a transfer from July 22nd, 1997. And that's it for this episode of Brooklyn, Where Have You Gone?